are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Thursday, December 7th. We have a lot to talk about on the show, as we normally do. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So starting off the show, we'll talk about who should start at quarterback for the Browns moving forward. Because obviously, we got to see the return of Joe Flacco on Sunday, which was you didn't expect, but that's where the Browns are at right now. So we'll talk about that in a second. We'll get into we'll give my early thoughts on the. We'll go into more detail tomorrow when we pick the games, but we'll talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles game and the level of importance going into the game. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll get into the Jets going back to Zach Wilson. So we'll give a little update on what's going on with the Jets and their quarterback situation. And then in the final part of the show, we're going to preview tonight's game between the Patriots and the Steelers. Now, in the past, that matchup used to be very enticing. Tonight, not so much, but we will get into it. We'll talk about it. That is the first game that'll kick us off for Week 14 in the NFL. So that'll be how we wrap up the show for the day. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about who the Browns should start at quarterback on Sunday. So like I said, Joe Flacco, he was the starting quarterback on Sunday for the Browns because of the injuries that they've been dealing with, at quarterback. Obviously, Deshaun Watson out for the year with the shoulder injury. DTR is still in concussion protocol. And I guess they just really do not want to go back to PJ Walker. So that's why they brought in Joe Flacco. And, Flacco didn't play that bad. He did throw the pick late in the game, but he did throw for over 250 yards. He had a touchdown in the game to Jerome Ford. I feel like for me, I think you kind of, and I think someone put it perfectly. You kind of just play him till, he doesn't play well, and then you go back to DTR. Because, when you're comparing the two quarterbacks, obviously Joe Flacco, between him and DTR, Joe Flacco is the more experienced quarterback. But it's kind of limited on what you can do with him because he's a pocket passer. He's not like DTR, who's going to be more mobile. So there are pros and cons to it. But I think more experienced, he's got the bigger arm. I think you probably go with Flacco still, and then you ride it out until he doesn't play well, and then you go back to DTR. Because it's important also, because the Browns are right now in a playoff spot, and I don't think they want to miss out on it, regardless of what, their quarterback position has been like, in recent weeks. So I think, for me, I probably stick with Flacco, and then if you have to go back to DTR, you do go back to DTR. But I just wanted to take a look at the Browns' schedule. So they play the Jaguars this week, and it still remains to be seen on whether or not Trevor Lawrence is going to play for this game at the moment. And if he doesn't, that helps the Browns out. Because obviously if Trevor Lawrence is playing, that gives them less of a chance to win. Then they're at home against the Bears, which I think is, a winnable game. At the Texans is going to be tough. That's going to be a tough game. Then they're home against the Jets, and then they're at the Bengals, who, have Jake Browning as their starting quarterback. But Jake Browning just played very well against Jacksonville. So if you get the Jake Browning that was carving up that Jaguars defense, that's going to be a problem. But the Browns defense, I think people will say, is better than the Jaguars. So the Browns have one of the best, defenses in the NFL. Although people have called it overrated, because you know what? Yeah, they do give up a lot of points. We saw against the against the Ravens, there was a lot of points they gave up, even though, part of that was a pick six that Deshaun Watson threw earlier in that game. The Colts game, I think, is one thing that everybody will go back to and say, yeah, the Browns did not play well. I think the final score in that game was like 39-38, I think. So yeah, this Browns defense can give up, some points, but right now they're 7-5, and you look at the other teams that are behind them. You have the Steelers right now, who have the the tiebreaker, so they have the fifth seed. The Browns have the sixth. Then you got the Colts at the 7. But yeah, you got the Texans there. You got the Broncos there. The Broncos already beat the Browns, so they got the tiebreaker over them. The Browns have the tiebreaker over the Bengals. If the Bengals win on Sunday and the Browns lose, they still have the tiebreaker over them. You got the Bills there as well. So we'll see. It's just unfortunate what's happened with the Browns this year, because they've had a ton of injuries, to their quarterback position and also to the running back position. Like they had to bring back Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb obviously getting hurt earlier in the season-ending knee injury, that he suffered in Week 2 against the Steelers on that Monday night. It's been a tough go for the Browns. And DTR, listen, he hasn't, lit up the stat sheet yet. And, I think the Browns are hoping that they get, something out of him, because let's be honest, the Deshaun Watson trade's not looking good right now. So if DTR can, maybe, develop into a good quarterback, at least they have a backup plan. Because right now, in the games that he's played, he has 429 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, quarterback rating of 50.6. So that's not great, obviously. His first start came against the Ravens. He had 3 picks, no touchdowns. He did come in for a bit against Seattle on October 29th. Did start against the Steelers. Again, really didn't do much. 165 yards passing, no touchdowns and a pick, but they won the game at least. And then against the Broncos, he went 14-29, 134 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And then, of course, he left the game with, concussion, and he's been in concussion protocol. But yeah, Flacco, like he went 23 of 44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, and his quarterback rating is 75.4. But yeah, then you look at PJ Walker, his quarterback ratings of 52.2, 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions. He's got 674 yards passing. And again, it's not like Deshaun Watson was doing really well. He got hurt. He missed some games this year before, suffering the season-ending shoulder injury. He had over 1,100 yards passing, 7 touchdowns to 4 picks. His quarterback rating was 84.3. So, the Browns, yeah, they need better quarterback play. Now, they're in a tough spot. Bringing in Flacco, I don't think was a bad move. Because I think Flacco could do okay with, and he did do okay. His first half was better than his second half, but the Browns have weapons on the offense, so it's not like Flacco's going in there and he's got nothing to really work with. The Browns have good skill position players, so he was stepping into a good situation. But and I talked about this. If he went to the Jets, when he was with the Jets last year, you got rookie Breece Hall, rookie Garrett Wilson, and that was kind of it really. They also had Corey Davis too. as well. Elijah Moore, who's actually now on the Browns now. Um, but he's in a better situation than he was last year. Now, again, I don't really expect. I mean, imagine Flacco goes on a Super Bowl run. That would be unbelievable if that happened. But it's not. It's not going to happen. Yeah, that Joe Flacco is not around anymore. This is now backup Joe Flacco. Now, I mean, it's crazy to think that he was a Raven. All those years, and that Super Bowl run he went on where he beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady on the road to get to the Super Bowl. One of the best Super Bowls, one of the greatest Super Bowls ever, was between the Ravens and the 49ers that year. And those two teams will play each other this year, and that could be a Super Bowl preview. Flacco, it's a tough spot to have to come in, at this point in the season, and help this team make the playoffs, but they can still make it. I mean, Flacco. The other thing too is like Flacco, they're not going to ask him to do a lot. I mean, when he has to, he's going to have to. But, you got a good running game. You have a good defense, so it's really going to be up to Flacco to just kind of manage the game, But I think that's kind of what you got to do at this point. You ride it with Flacco, and then you go from there. If he just really just does not play well, this week, then you put back in DTR, and if DTR can stay healthy, then you kind of just roll with him going forward, and you see if you can make it. Because, I mean, the Browns right now are still in a playoff spot, but, again, that could change very quickly. They got some big games coming up on their schedule, like I said before. So, it's tough. And like I said, they got put into a bad spot, of course, with Deshaun Watson getting hurt. But I think you got to hope that DTR can maybe develop into a good player. I mean, I don't really know if that's going to happen. But, at least like I said before, if the Deshaun Watson stuff does not work, if Deshaun Watson does not pan out, at least you have DTR who could step in and, take over. But listen, it all goes back to Baker Mayfield. Maybe you should have just kept Baker and, tried to work it out with him. But, they thought they were doing the right. I mean, Deshaun Watson, yeah, if they had the opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, and, Deshaun Watson at one point was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but that was a long time ago. It feels like an eternity ago because a lot of stuff has happened since then off the field, and now he didn't look like the same quarterback. So listen, the Browns they made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. Baker played well, but they thought they were doing the right thing by getting Deshaun Watson and shipping Baker out, and yeah, they're kind of still dealing with quarterback issues, even with the Deshaun Watson deal. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's unfortunate for the fan base of that team because they're just desperate for a winning season. Well, they got a winning season, but they just want to see their team win. They want to see their team win some playoff games here. Go far in the playoffs. I mean, they did get a playoff win, which Baker Mayfield was the quarterback of, but it just seems like it looked like they were taking a step forward, and now they've taken steps back since then. And now the quarterback position, it's been tough. So, but let me know what you guys think. What should the Browns do at quarterback? Do they ride it out with Flacco, or do they go back to DTR, or do they go to PJ Walker? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the level of importance of this Cowboys-Eagles matchup, the NFC East rematch here. It's a big game on Sunday, and we'll talk about it. I'll give my early thoughts on that in the second part of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the importance of this upcoming game on Sunday between the Cowboys and the Eagles. But before I get into that, I just want to say, I want to remind you guys, tomorrow is going to be another episode of the GSMC baseball podcast. And there's going to be stuff to talk about tomorrow. Because last night, the Yankees acquired Juan Soto. And as a Yankee fan, and I know a lot of people are going to be, annoyed because, the Yankees are not a very, liked team. As a Yankee fan, I'm like excited. I'm really excited. I really just did not expect that to happen. Although, you see reports coming out and you think like, okay, let's see if this actually does happen. And it got to a certain point where you're like, this is going to get done. And it did. And now the Yankees have one of the best players in baseball to go along with another one of the best players, arguably the best player in baseball, if Shohei Ohtani, wasn't playing in the majors, and that's Aaron Judge. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the season. Obviously, there's some work that needs to be done, more work that needs to be done, but it's just really a big step in the right direction, even if it's just for 1 year. So, but yeah, I'm excited. So, with that being said, let's get into now. A game that we all should be excited about on Sunday, one of the best games of the weekend, and that is the Cowboys and the Eagles. So, the last time these two teams played each other, it was a very close game. It came down to the very end. Cowboys should have won the game, and I think I did a segment before that game actually, and that was talking about like this is a statement game for the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys played well enough where it was like, well, they could definitely beat the Eagles, but both teams have gotten smacked around by the Niners this year. So that's, right now, these two teams, they're 2-3 in the NFC. Because the 49ers, they beat the Cowboys by a lot, earlier in the season in San Francisco. And they just came off of a 42-19 victory over the Eagles in Philly. So now you got these two teams going at it. Eagles are 10-2, Cowboys are 9-3. And yeah, I mean, this is a big game. This has a lot of implications because Cowboys win this game, they tie the Eagles for the division. The Eagles, they still got a couple of matchups with the Giants in the division, which I think they should win both of those games. The Cowboys, they have another game against the Commanders, and that's at the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, Cowboys win this game. I mean, that's huge. Now, I think for me, if the Cowboys win this game, I mean, that only helps the 49ers because then the Niners, if they win, they end up, as the 1 seed. And I think the Niners ultimately would keep it because I don't think the Niners are going to lose the game the rest. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because they do play the Ravens, so they could lose that game. But this is a massive game. I mean, the Eagles, there's some people out there that are kind of doubting them right now. You have people on television talking about that the Eagles should bench Jalen Hurts for Marcus Mariota. I don't know what's up with that. Because we saw, listen, I talked about Gardner Minshew yesterday, and when he was the backup for the Eagles, like he did an okay job, although they did lose both games that he started. The Eagles were different. I mean, they lost to the Saints last year. The Eagles are a different team without Jalen Hurts. We could talk about how Jalen Hurts, people saying Jalen Hurts can't read defenses, and he's been turning the ball over a lot this year and all that. But he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he is a big reason why the Eagles are in the position that they're in. They wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that they do without Jalen Hurts. I mean, the tush push, yeah, we could say the offensive line is the reason why they're able to do that, but you also got to have the quarterback too, and Jalen Hurts is a big part of that play as well. Um, saying that, oh yeah, they should bench. I mean, I heard it was like some of the reasons was because he's not like fully healthy, like get him fully healthy for the playoffs, but because I mean, listen, Jalen Hurts got hurt towards the end of last year, and he missed a couple of games, but he was able to come back and yeah, like that I can understand, but I mean, these games are really important. I mean, especially when you got the Cowboys right behind you and you're trying to hold off the 49ers for, the 1 seed as well. Yeah, I don't think benching your starting quarterback is going to help that. That is just going to make it easier on the other teams that are trying to pass you. So I don't really understand that. But listen, you got people out there that are, just kind of giving up on the Eagles. Some people are, talking about that maybe the NFC Championship was, fraudulent now because, the Niners came in with Brock Purdy playing the full game and the Niners smacked the Eagles around. So the Eagles got some doubters now going into this game. And the Cowboys, I mean, listen, their defense did not play well on last Thursday against the Seahawks. I mean, Geno Smith had his way. DK Metcalf had 3 touchdowns in the game. Yeah, it was the defense playing the way it did was a little bit concerning. They got no pressure on Geno, no sacks. And now you got an Eagles offense that's coming in. The Eagles are a better team than Seattle, and they got a very good offensive line, good running game, good weapons. So, yeah, they're going to need to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. And the one thing that favors the other thing that favors the Cowboys in this game is they're at home now. Now the Eagles are coming into their place. I think for me, both defenses are going to struggle in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored here. It's in Jerry World. But yeah, I mean, it's a big game for both teams. I mean, this could really. I mean, the Cowboys lose this game, it's just then they're kind of I think locked into the 5 seed, which isn't bad because your first playoff game is going to come against the winner of the NFC South, which is the worst division in the league. So at least you have that, to fall back on. And like I said, I view the Cowboys as the 3rd best team in the NFC. There are some people that still think the Lions are. I think the way the Lions defense has played, in recent weeks, I can't put them over the Cowboys. Now, if the Cowboys defense keeps playing the way they did on Thursday, then there's a different conversation to be had. Now, those two teams do play each other later in the season, in a couple of weeks or so. So that'll really determine, who really is, the 3rd best team in the NFC, at least for the moment. But I don't know. I mean, this game I'm really looking forward to. I'm hoping it's not a blowout. I'm just hoping for a good game. As a Giant fan, it really doesn't matter at this point. Although people are saying, "Hey, the Giants, they're making they still have a chance at making the playoffs." Like, no, it's over. It's like I said, it's been over since week 1. Not that I was watching the game, but keeping up with it, when you see 40-0, you're like, hey, that's it. This game's over. The season's over. They're the same team they've been in for years. That's exactly what's happened. 4-8. These two teams are the class of the NFC, and it's going to be like that, for years to come until the Giants and the Commanders, change that. Funny thing is, the Commanders really, it's weird. The Commanders are so weird. Like, they'll play bad against the Giants. They'll play good against the Eagles. Cowboys, they got blown out. But it's weird. It's weird. Giants, they own the Commanders, but Cowboys and Eagles just destroy them every time they play them. It's just not even a game, not even competitive. But these two teams will be competitive. It's going to be similar to what the first game was. And like I said, Cowboys left a lot of points off the board. You know, um, on the fourth and goal, and I think it was it Ferguson or Schoonamaker, one of the tight ends. Their knee was down and the ball was short of the goal line on that fourth and goal. That's points taken off the board. They had their chances at the end when they went down the field. I mean, especially on the last drive. I mean, there was a couple of penalties that, put them in good position to maybe win the game, and that just, it didn't happen. Um, you know, and we'll see. We'll see what they do on Sunday. The Cowboys. I mean, maybe the defense played bad because teams they have a tendency to maybe at times look at the following game like they're like, all right, let's get through this game, get to that game. That happens. Um, but like I said, I expect a lot of points to be scored because the Eagles' defense is suspect too. I mean, last year you had all these guys getting double-digit sacks, and the secondary with Slay and Bradbury and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And now the secondary is weaker than it was last year because now there's no Gardner-Johnson anymore. Bradbury, um, you know, criticism with him and his level of play as well. I mean, Deebo Samuel called him out, calling him trash. That's what he said. And 49ers, listen, him and the 49ers backed it up. They really did back up their trash talk because they dismantled the Eagles. And Dak Prescott, he's been playing at an MVP level for weeks now. And, he's getting Brandon Cooks more involved. CeeDee Lamb is getting a ton of targets, as he should be. They're starting to run the football a little bit better. So, now Ferguson's become a weapon for them, the tight end. So, the Cowboys are going to put up points. So the Eagles, they're going to have to do the same thing, and I think they can. So it's going to be a tough game for both teams. And the Eagles, you lose two in a row, it's gonna start not looking good there. Even if they do lose this game, I mean, they're gonna make the playoffs, But there are there's some issues that they have. Because for weeks now, everybody's been saying they haven't been playing their best football. And they, give them credit. They were down against the Bills. They were down against the Chiefs, and they came back and won those games. Imagine they didn't win those games, and then you get killed by the 49ers. I mean, yeah. So they were fortunate to win those games because they very easily could have lost. And then, now you got the Cowboys. So we'll see what the Eagles do, how they respond to their loss last week against the 49ers. Like I said, I'll go into more detail with this game tomorrow. Give my picks because obviously tomorrow is a football Friday. But yeah, so this game is very important. There's a lot of things that can change. Whether it's talking about home field advantage and the division as well. So before we go into our second break, again, I just want to remind you guys. To tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, we're going to take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Jets going back to Zach Wilson. I'll give you my thoughts on that. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Jets going back to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is going to start on Sunday against the Houston Texans. Honestly, I was kind of in agreement with, especially here with the, sports media here. It's like, at this point, the Jets are kind of just out of it. They thought, again, similar to last year, you make a quarterback change, you try to, reignite the offense, get something going, push themselves into the playoffs. But, yeah, the Tim Boyle experiment clearly did not work. Not that I was a believer of it. It's like, I was like, yeah, maybe you see what you got, but it's probably going to be more of the same. And yeah, it was pretty much more of the same. Offense can't score touchdowns. They got the defense has scored more points, as opposed to the offense. They got the safety against the Falcons. They got the pick six off of Tua, a couple weeks ago in the Black Friday game. The Jets offense is a mess, and again, it's unfortunate because I really wanted to see what Aaron Rodgers was going to do for this team, but it just wasn't meant to be for this year. So hopefully next year he comes back healthy, he bounces back, and then we actually get to see what he does, as opposed to him, running out with the American flag and only playing 4 snaps. And again, I thought it was, really cool when he did that, and then it just, seeing the stadium all, pumped up, and, it was unbelievable, really. And then just 4 plays in, it just, again, I was beside myself, seeing that. So hopefully, take 2 next year is going to be better. But of course, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media with, Zach Wilson, and, there was reports out there that he was reluctant to go back to being the starter. And there's different reports and things like that. The Jets were saying, there's reports that the Jets had Aaron Rodgers go to talk to Zach Wilson, about, coming back as the starter, and he was, hesitant. But now Zach Wilson, I did hear, listening to the radio in the car yesterday, he did say that, he's going to come back. He's ready to play. He's ready to go. So I don't know. It's a whole mess there. And it's just going to be, again, it's another situation where it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because the Jets are, they were 4-3 at one point. Now, they're 4-8. And they're not going to make the playoffs. And I did do a segment earlier in the year where I said, can the Jets make the playoffs? And, you thought so, because you come off a win against the Eagles, and a game you had no business winning, because, and people could argue, hey, Hurts doesn't throw that pick, then the Jets probably lose that game. And they also should have lost against the Giants, too. So they're like one legitimate win, if you really think about it, probably came against the Broncos. If you want to put the Bills in there too, you can. But this offense has been awful. The Giant game, 13 points. Chargers game, 6. 12 against the Raiders. 6 against the Bills. 13 against the Dolphins. Well, one of them was a pick 6. 6 points against the Falcons. The 2 was the safety. It's terrible. It's really bad. And listen, Nathaniel Hackett, he's a quarterback's coach. Him as a play caller without Aaron Rodgers, it's just, you need Aaron Rodgers to run his offense, because it just shows you that he's just not a good play caller. He's not. You go back to Denver last year, they were a bad team that he didn't even make it through the full year. And the Jets, they had Mike LaFleur as their play caller, and he wasn't good either. So I don't know. Robert Saleh, he is a good defensive coach, but he's not a good head coach, because he has no he has he has no control. Well, I shouldn't say he has no control, but he has no. Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I guess he has no like grip on. Yeah, I was gonna say grip. He has like no grip on the offense. He doesn't really, or influence. He doesn't really, know offense. Defense is his strength, and it's similar to Rex Ryan too. So I don't know what the Jets are gonna do at the end of the year, because you got Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, who since they've come here they have a losing record. They have a losing record, and they could end the season losing the rest of their games. And it's like, you're really gonna run it back like this? I mean, I guess you run it back with Rodgers, but it's not good. It's not good the way the season has played out, because and you got to fault them too, because they didn't bring in a backup quarterback that could play. Like, you had Carson Wentz out there, you had Matt Ryan out there. Like, those options would be, now again, they're not the same players that they used to be, but I mean, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan's like doing broadcasting now, and he likes that. He even said, like, I'm fine with what I'm doing. Carson Wentz was out there. Carson Wentz would have been so much better than Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle. Now, when you talk about Carson Wentz and him as a person, and how he wasn't really, it seems like he really wasn't liked in locker rooms, that's a different story. But you're telling me Carson Wentz couldn't come to this Jets team and they could have won a few more games than they have right now? They absolutely could have, especially with the defense that they have. Because at least Carson Wentz can move the ball. The offense would have been better with him at quarterback. But again, if there was other things besides, his quarterback play that were making you hesitant to signing him, that's a different story. But for me, I think that would have made more sense, as opposed to, let's bring in Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, because those are not. I mean, look around the league. All these backup quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew coming in. I mean, PJ Walker did win a couple of games, with the Browns, or at least they won the game against San Francisco when he started. Who else? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, Josh Dobbs, as a backup quarterback, he was winning games. Tommy DeVito winning games. There's a handful of backup quarterbacks out there that are winning games, and you just go and you're like, all right, we're going to settle for Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian. And it's just it didn't work. Aiden O'Connell, he won some games, even though they were against the Jets and the Giants. It's just the Jets, they get Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, and I mean, they're fumbling the ball all over the place on Sunday. Now, the weather conditions were bad, but still, I mean, it was just it's terrible what's happened with the Jets this year. And Zach Wilson, again, is getting another chance to prove himself. Now, is he gonna prove himself? Is he gonna play well? No, I don't think so. I mean, there's really nothing that indicates anything else. But you know what? You're only gonna get so many chances. Like this, like if you could go out there and you play well, these last 4 games that we got left in the season. That'll help, but you go out there and you continue to play how you've been playing, you're not really going to get another shot. But then you also got the fact that it's not all his fault. The offensive line is bad. The play calling is bad. You don't have a lot of weapons outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Alan Lazard has been a terrible signing. You're tight. Like, Tyler Conklin's okay, but he's not a game-changing tight end. They don't really have a lot of weapons. Dalvin Cook has been a disaster too. He fumbled on Sunday. So it's not all of Zach Wilson's fault. I agree with that. But he's not very good. He's not very good, because you look at, then you could talk about, look at what C.J. Stroud is doing this year. Nobody really expected the Texans to do anything. Did anybody know who Nico Collins was? I mean, I knew who he was, but Nico Collins is becoming a really good wide receiver. Tank Dell before he got hurt, their rookie, the other rookie wide receiver. Well, Nico Collins isn't a rookie, but Tank Dell, their rookie wide receiver before he got hurt, he was playing well. You didn't hear these guys. They got Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary as their two running backs. Like CJ Stroud is doing a lot. He is looking right now as a franchise quarterback. He looks like he's the real deal. Zach Wilson, there's been very few moments. I mean, you go back to the Titans game his rookie year. That's the one. Excuse me. That's the one I always go back to because that was, he made some great throws in that game. Where is that Zach Wilson? He's had moments, but this year it's just been a disaster. I mean, they lost to the Patriots. They don't. This offense does not put up points, and they built up this defense. This defense is very good, very talented. Great players on all three levels, but you look at the offensive side of the ball, and they're limited on what they can do. Now, again, injuries have played a role in that, but it's not good. It's not good. So, he's back in again. Let's see what happens. I mean, it's going to be more of the same, unfortunately. I mean, unless the Jets say, you know what, we're out of it. I mean, not mathematically, but realistically, we're out of it. Just, you know what, Zach, go out there and just at this point, it doesn't matter. Just go out there and just let it rip. And whatever happens, happens. But because this season's a lost season. And it's on to next year, and who knows where Zach Wilson will end up if he ends up anywhere. I mean, we could maybe see him playing in the XFL USFL merger, which I talked about this yesterday. I had no idea that was happening. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes with them combining. But you might see Zach Wilson playing there at some point because I don't know. I don't know who's going to take him on. Maybe there's a team that brings him in as a backup, but yeah, I mean, he's still very young too, so maybe a team that actually can develop a quarterback properly could come in and fix him, which I don't know. At this point I don't think that's very likely, but you never know. So, but let me know what you guys think about this. Is this the right decision for the Jets to go back to Zach Wilson? Does it really matter? I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think now with like the Jets like pretty much being out of it, it's like you'd rather just play him instead of Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian. So, but all right. So with that, we're gonna take our final break of the show, and then when we come back. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to talk about the great quarterback matchup we have when it comes to tonight's Thursday night game matchup between the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about now, preview tonight's Thursday night matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. Now, this is a matchup that back in the day was something to look forward to. Now, the Patriots back in the day owned the Steelers. I mean, they just did. But at least it was something exciting to look forward to. You know, you had Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger going at it. Again, that was something that you looked forward to. But it's now, I mean, what is this matchup? What is this? I mean, we're not even getting, the quarterbacks that started the year for these teams playing in this game. You are getting Bailey Zappi versus Mitchell Trubisky. That is where we're at in 2023 with these two teams. Now, the Steelers are in a much better position than the Patriots are. The Patriots are 2-10. The Steelers are 7-5. But here's the thing. I think this game is going to be close. I mean, I know people are saying, the Steelers should win. Some people are like, the Steelers should cover the number. Right now, the spread opened at 6.5. Now it's down to 5.5. I'm taking the 6.5 points. I am. I mean, I took it against the Chargers, and the Chargers won 6-0. The Patriots' defense, isn't bad, but their offense is just horrible. And on top of that, you got Ramondre Stevenson, who's probably their best player on offense. He's hurt. He's not in this game. He got hurt in the Chargers game. So when you look at their offensive rankings, so passing yards per game, the Patriots are 27th. The Steelers are 30th. Rushing yards per game, the Steelers are 14th. The Patriots are 21st. And then points per game. The Steelers are 28th, and the Patriots are ranked dead last in the NFL. So you figure this is going to be a low-scoring game because the over/under right now is 30. So we could see another game. We could see. I mean, this game there might not be a touchdown in this game. I mean, there probably still will be, but then again, I mean, Chargers only won 6-0, and the Chargers' offense is much better than the Steelers' offense. At least on paper. Then on the defensive side of things, the Patriots are 14th against the pass. The Steelers are 20th. Patriots are 3rd against the run. Steelers are 22nd. The Steelers have, done a better job running the ball, with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. Last week was kind of tough just because they were down, against the Cardinals. Points allowed, the Steelers are 6th, and the Patriots are 15th. There's going to be no Kenny Pickett in this game. Mitchell Trubisky is going to get the start. These teams did play early last year. The Patriots actually won that game. Let me go back to that. Need to refresh my my memory here with the Steelers and the Patriots. So that game, final score of that game was 17-14. So we could see a score similar to that, maybe even less. We'll go through. I'll actually look at the box score here. So, with that game, so Mac Jones went 21-35, 252 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, QBR of 56.7, and a quarterback rating of 79.7. Damian Harris was their leading rusher, who is no longer with them, of course. He's with the Bills. 71 yards rushing, a touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson had 47 yards on the ground. Nelson Aguilar was their leading receiver. He had 110 yards receiving and a touchdown. Jacoby Myers, 95 yards receiving. Kendrick Bourne. Wow. A lot of these players are not on the team anymore. Aguilar isn't. Jacoby Myers isn't. Kendrick Bourne is out for the year with the torn ACL. Damian Harris is with the Bills now. Lil Jordan Humphrey is not there anymore. I didn't even know he was on the Patriots. I know he's on the Broncos now. I'm pretty sure. Ramondre Stevenson's hurt. You got Devontae Parker and Hunter Henry. Jonnu Smith's not on the team anymore. So, different offense as opposed to last year. And even at quarterback, too. For the Steelers, Mitchell Trubisky had a 37.6 QBR and a 73.8 quarterback rating. He went 21-33, 168 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Najee Harris was their leading rusher. He had 49 yards rushing. Deontay Johnson, he was their leading receiver with 57 yards receiving. Chase Claypool was still on the team last year. Everybody else, was still there. Warren, Freiermuth, Pickens, they'll all be playing tonight. But yeah, I mean, kind of expecting more of the same tonight. It's going to be a mess. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the leading rusher for the Patriots, in this game. Man, how far, these two teams have fallen. Even though the Steelers are still, in a playoff spot, they got a chance to do something this year. I mean, they probably won't, but they could at least make the playoffs. The Patriots, I mean, they're 2-10. They're 2-10. How is that possible? But it's funny because I think I referenced this, but my friend and I, we recorded a podcast, before last year, and we talked about the Patriots and how they were going to be horrible and they were not going to win a lot of games, and they went 8-9. This year, I mean, they're 2-10, so we were 1 year early on that. And I just figured, you know what, they went 8-9 with that team, they'll probably go 8-9 with this team, and it's just, yeah, they just aren't very. Not that they're just not very good, they're terrible. And, we could see Bill Belichick maybe leaving after this year. I mean, the Patriots, they got a top 3 pick, so if they get a franchise quarterback out of it, does Belichick stick around? That's one thing that, people in the media have said. So we'll see. I know Patriots fans seem like they're done with him. But, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But for this game, though, I think it's going to be very close, this game. It's tough. I'm going to say the Steelers win. I think they get back on track, but it's going to be like an ugly game. I mean, so the over-under is 30. I said it's going to be under. I'm going to say the final score is like, oh, man, this is tough. I'm going to say the final score is going to be, I'm going to say 16-10 is going to be the final score. So the Steelers had that game against the Bengals where that went 16-10. I'm going to say that's the final score, 16-10. Because that also covers the number in the spread pool. Well, at least my spread pool, because the line doesn't change, right? Because the spread is 6.5. So it's still 6.5. Yeah, so 16-10. I'll take that as the final score. There's going to be also the under too. I think the under should hit. We're going to see turnovers in this game. I feel like every time I say that, then there ends up being no turnovers. But there should be turnovers in this game. Mitchell Trubisky's going to throw an interception. I know he's going to throw an interception. Zappy might fumble. I mean, listen, people thought, Bailey Zappi, they went on the road against the Browns last year and they won. He came in relief for Mac Jones against the Bears and he was he rejuvenated the offense even though they still lost that game. So it looked like, hey, maybe Zappi might be, they almost beat the Packers in Lambeau last year with Zappi at quarterback. It was like, hey, maybe Zappi might be something. No, that has not been the case. But I think also you just got to look at, what they have around them. I mean, they just don't have, a lot of talent around them. They don't. What the Patriots did in the offseason, they went and signed Mike Gesicki, Ezekiel Elliott, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, if you put those guys on a team like the Chiefs, Ezekiel Elliott to back up Isaiah Pacheco and McKinnon, and Juju Smith-Schuster staying with Kansas City and Mike Gesicki being another tight end to go along with Travis Kelce, those are good moves. But if you're making those guys the main guys on the offense for the New England Patriots, it's not going to work. It's not really going to work. Now, I guess Zeke going along with Ramondre Stevenson, that's, now Ramondre Stevenson's out, so Zeke's got to step in and be the lead back. But yeah, the Patriots really just did not do a good job at surrounding, Mac Jones and now Zappi, with some talent. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster misses being on the Chiefs. And the Chiefs miss Juju Smith-Schuster, because Juju wasn't bad with the Chiefs last year. He was good. And, now people are talking about the Chiefs like, oh, well, now they don't have they don't have Tyreek Hill. See what happens? But it's like they won the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. They need receivers that can catch the ball. They don't really. I mean, a lot of the guys they had it last year, but yeah, I don't know. But the Patriots actually do play the Chiefs coming up, so yeah, it's. I mean, this game tonight. Listen, I'm gonna watch it because you got fantasy implications, spread pool stuff. My dad's a Steelers fan. I mean, it's also a football game, so like, I'm watching it. But yeah, this game is not as exciting as it once was. Unless Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger, unless you guys want to suit up and play tonight, which is not going to happen. Yeah, this game is not. This game's going to be. It's going to be a tough watch, especially last week. We got a good Thursday night game. Very high scoring, two good offenses. This week we're getting some of the worst offenses in the NFL. I mean, we'll see what happens tonight. I mean, imagine the score is like 3-0. The final score. I mean, again, Patriots lost 6-0. I mean, we could see something like that. But I'll say the teams do get in the end zone. I'll say they score some touchdowns in this game, but we'll see. I mean, this could definitely be a defensive battle. I could definitely see that happening. So, let me know what you guys think about that. I got the Steelers winning 16-10, at least covering the 6.5 in my spread pool, and the under hitting. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think is going to win? And, yeah, so that's pretty much it with the show for today. Like I said before, tomorrow is going to be a doubleheader. So we'll have the football show, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time. And then after that, half hour later, we'll be doing the baseball podcast. And, of course, I have a lot of stuff to talk about tomorrow because of the fact that Juan Soto is now a New York Yankee. So I'm really excited to talk about that. I did bring it up a little bit during the show today because I had to, because that was a big thing that happened yesterday. So the doubleheader will be tomorrow. I'm working on getting, the 4 parts of the last couple of shows up. That'll happen at some point today. So if you missed anything, you could just, watch them like that. But, of course, the live streams are still up. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, almost another week in the books. Tomorrow, like I said, doubleheader. Then that'll take us into the weekend and into week 14. And, maybe we'll see, another big free agent sign when it comes to baseball. Give me something else to talk about as well. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show. So with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of the Football Podcast, GSMC Football Podcast. That'll be our picks for tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And then, of course, the baseball show will be after that. So until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Try to enjoy the game tonight. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.